right, here we go. Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today's accessory is going to be Bitcoin ATM machines. And I'm with my bros from CoinFlip.Tech. How goes it?
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you so much for having us. Super grateful to be on your show.
Appreciate you coming on. Good to see you again. Litecoin Summit. Shout out to those guys. It was cool seeing you there.
Yeah, we had a booth there. It was really cool.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience? Let them know who you are and maybe what you were doing before you got into crypto, how you got into crypto, and what you're doing now with CoinFlip.Tech.
Sure. So I guess I'll start. My name is Daniel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the company. So basically, the way I got into crypto is I had heard about it originally because it was about 2013, and I just like read this news article about this like market called the Silk Road coming down. You know, the Fed's using it, and they were saying that people were paying for the goods on there with this thing called Bitcoin. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like it's like a different currency than it's not issued by the government. Like that's pretty rad. I didn't really think too much of it. I just thought it was cool, like noted it. But then after that, I kept kind of seeing more and more news articles about it in the coming months. So like it kept piquing my interest. So I'm like, all right, like I got to do some research on this. Maybe I got to get some Bitcoin. So I decided finally that I'm going to buy some. It was around probably 2014. And I went to the first ever Bitcoin ATM in Chicago to do the purchase. It was at this empanadas place called Cassava. Um, so I put the money in, I did the whole thing, but I didn't really like how the ATM worked. Like it was really hard to feed the bills in and it wasn't really easy to get the Bitcoin. So basically after that, I went on a site called localbitcoins.com. Um, they've since, sorry, phone. They've since stopped listings for crypto to cash like meetups. But back in the
Yep.
day, you could literally meet with somebody in like Starbucks. You know, you put cash on the table, they give you Bitcoin. So basically what I did is that's exactly what I did. I met with somebody in Starbucks, you know, I put cash on the table, they gave me Bitcoin. And then we kind of got to talking and I was like, even though the ATM that I used the first time wasn't great, it still beats beating somebody at a Starbucks to trade. Because A, that's like super unsafe. You know, eventually you're going to get shot if you keep throwing money down in a Starbucks. And
Right.
two, it's not super scalable. You know, like you can't do like 1,000 meetups a day or 2,000 meetups a day because you're only one person. So you need some like machine, whatever, that's going to stand there all day and be able to take orders. So that's kind of how I got the idea for the Bitcoin ATMs. I'm like, this is great. It's a great way to like have a fiat on ramp for like the average person, really easy to understand. So I just kind of started putting down ATMs. I was a student at Northwestern at the time, and one by one, we've grown to 400 ATMs, and it's super
Wow.
cool. And I'm really excited. Yeah. We were the number one Bitcoin ATM company in the world for a bit. Right now, we're number two, but we're going to take back our spot. And
Well, with 400 ATMs, man, that's a lot of foot traffic. I wonder what were some of like the hardships and the defeats that you had to overcome to get these. Was there any like regulations or anything that you didn't expect that you'd had to get through?
yeah, so at first, when I first started the business, I read about my good friend Charlie Shrem going down because of
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
what he was doing, with the whole Bit Instant thing and like with the Winklevoss twins. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to be the next Charlie Shrem. So I looked into the regulations. You do have to register as an MSB with FinCEN. You have to have like an AML, KYC policy, like all the stuff that a regular exchange has to have. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna obviously do this because I don't want any trouble. We did the research. We got the AML policy in place, and now we're putting down ATMs, and I think we're in about 30 states. And also a huge issue going. I mean, it still always is an issue, but just like the cash flow, because the amount of money you need to run the ATM itself isn't like super expensive, but it probably takes a week for an armored guard to pick it up, and then probably 2 days of processing. So there's probably a 9-day lead time on your cash, and you need that cash to go back into the bank so you can buy more Bitcoin. So there's always kind of a cash flow issue. It's always kind of been, stopping our expansion. Obviously, super grateful to have gotten to 400 ATMs, but that wasn't a restriction. I think we could even have more. We're constantly working on that.
What about like digital transaction, like just putting your Visa card into the machine to get Bitcoin instead of people putting cash in?
Well, we've thought about that, but we think that if somebody were going to use their card, they'd probably just do it online. Because why would you go somewhere physically unless you had to deposit cash? So we do have the option online if you go to our website to buy Bitcoin with credit and debit card.
Okay.
So we do that as well. But I kind of made it like it didn't really make sense to put it on the kiosk itself, because you can always just buy Bitcoin from your house using credit card.
That's interesting that the story, the mainstream, kind of blowing up about Silk Road kind of led to, the conception of CoinFlip. And I'm wondering, what's your story, bro?
Yeah, so I actually started crypto while I was in high school. I accidentally make Nick, I accidentally met Nick Spanos when I went to New York for the first time for an academic thing. And shout out to Nick. He's the founder of the Bitcoin Center of New York City.
Yeah,
He
and I'm headed
founded
out to Miami next week or 2 weeks from
Oh,
now.
so
So
is
right.
shout
he.
out.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
might come too.
He also founded the Bitcoin Center Miami now.
Yep.
So he's been like a revolutionary pioneer for like the longest. So I got to meet him. He taught me a lot about Bitcoin. And then I worked for him for a little bit. So before and then afterwards, when I had school, I had to go back to Chicago, and then the only way for me to get Bitcoin afterwards was like through a Bitcoin ATM because I was under 18. There's like no other way for me to get Bitcoin. I don't have a bank account. I can't do KYC
No
to like the
PayPal.
full extent. I can't do PayPal. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm very limited on
Justin
like,
was
what I
blocked
can do.
from the banking system before
Yeah.
he was 18.
So like I tried to buy it with like my debit card, but like my Chase bank account got banned, and then
Yeah.
where I was even 18, and then like
Brutal.
so CoinFlip was like the only way for me to get access to like Bitcoin. So eventually, I really love what they're doing. I think that like I think it's like kind of Bitcoin ATMs are like the roots of like adoption. You know, like anyone could do it. There's like very little barriers. So eventually, I joined the team just because I love what they're doing, and also like a lot of the people here are younger and like they're very focused on like making it happen and like making it big. So you know,
That's interesting that you've on ramped into Bitcoin due to like all the borders of entry from the legacy system due to like
right.
age restrictions, which is basically telling miners they're not even citizens of the economic country, right? It's a
Exactly.
huge burden, especially the parents who have to basically be the caterers to high school students who are intelligently inclined enough to handle their finances, at least on that level. You can't even have a
Right.
PayPal account as a kid. Like, how inconvenient is that to buy a fucking Fortnite skin? You have to tug on your mom's shoulder all day.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. But thankfully, it got Dustin involved in CoinFlip. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy about it.
Well, I see you are really optimistic about these Bitcoin ATMs, and recently I've been seeing some posts of like the Bitcoin ATM machine ghost, the shells left behind. Is the traction not as big as it used to be, or I'm just curious because there have been some of these Bitcoin ATM machines that are kind of leaving the market, or stores are kind of taking them out of and uninstalling them.
Well, basically, I mean, it is a really hard business to operate. Like, there are a lot of it's not just like running an online exchange where you're kind of just taking orders. It's like a machine doing everything. Like, there is a lot of like grunt work. You have to like deal with like legacy systems, like, armored car carriers like Guardard, Brinks, and like you have to, like, it is a very execution heavy business. So if you don't have it at scale, or if you don't don't market enough, for example, like you're not going to have the traction you need. But I mean, for us, actually, like fortunately enough, we've upped our marketing a lot recently. We always make sure our machines are ready to use, keep downtime to a minimum. So our average revenue per machine's actually been going up since when we started.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
What makes CoinFlip different from like the other operators is just that like we have the lowest fees, 24/7 customer support. Like we have good relationships with a lot of like the owners of the stores. Like they know who we are. They could contact us just by calling us. It's so like the other operators. Sometimes their customers call our customer support line because like their customers can't reach their customer support. We make it so simple that like anyone could,
Right.
like
And some of
so
these guys at 20%, I mean, it's just not,
yeah,
it's not a feasible business. I think we're trying to keep the rates.
Yeah,
As Dustin
we're at,
said,
like-
like super low. We're at 6.99%.
right. And then we
Wow,
have like
that is really
partnerships
low for a
with
physical
all
machine.
going on. Yeah, and then
With some even lower.
right, exactly. So
Well, it's not. It's not just Bitcoin, right? With the CoinFlip ATMs.
Right. So we sell Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Tron, Komodo, Dash, and Chainlink. And we're hoping to get some more on there as soon as we can.
Yeah.
What's that process like for listing a coin on an ATM? Is it similar
Yeah.
to like an exchange listing or?
So there's a lot of due diligence that we have to do. We take a look at a lot of different factors, such as like community, volume, what exchanges they're already listed in, because we're only able to use certain exchanges. So then, like, if they're not on those, then it's kind of harder for us to get
Good point.
the coins. If like the volume not high enough, then like every time we buy the coin, it might like change the price up a lot. Like we definitely need like volume, due diligence. We need opinion letters and everything sent to like our compliance department, and then we also need like the community. Like if they have like a huge community, if like people are actually using it, depending on where they're based. We take basically every single factor that we can into a listing process.
Yeah, and like a big part of that opinion letter that Dustin was talking about is so you notice how like there's Binance and there's Binance US, right? So
Right.
Binance US, like they're not like licensed to be securities brokers, right? Like we can't sell a coin that's like deemed to be like a security or pretty much a stock, like something that just is basically a stock, but the crypto version of a stock. So we need like an opinion letter from the coin's like foundation, like, hey, this is like a decentralized cryptocurrency versus like, a coin masquerading as a stock. Because we can't sell those.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely something to take into consideration. You don't want to get caught up in that legal red tape. And big shout out to J Mac. I see you in the chat, bro.
I love JMac.
Same. What's it? I've heard different terms used for these machines, from Bitcoin ATM machine to like a Bitcoin teller to Bitcoin vending machine. Is there any like indicator for these terminologies moving forward? I think like Bitcoin vending machine may be more appropriate than a Bitcoin ATM machine, but I'm just curious what your opinions are.
Yeah, I mean, a Bitcoin ATM, typically, I mean, we do have a kiosk that kind of represents what you would actually think of like a Bitcoin ATM. It's a two-way kiosk. So what you can do is you can send the Bitcoin to it, and then it dispenses cash. That's kind of more of what I feel like is like a Bitcoin ATM. The Bitcoin vending machine, I have always agreed with you, is like, a more proper term because you're putting cash in for the most part and getting Bitcoin out. It is kind of a vending machine. But just for the sake of like, appearing on like Google searches and like trying to be as, out there as possible, I guess like the universal term that people have gone with is a Bitcoin ATM. So that's just what we use. It's also kind of like when you're selling it, it makes it feel kind of familiar to someone, like, oh, an ATM,
Right, exactly.
like I kind of understand what this is, like in general. And a teller is completely different. That's there are some companies that have like in people who are literally standing behind a counter, kind of like the local trades model, where like, you give them the cash and hopefully they're behind like a glass window or whatever. And
Yeah,
they'll,
I think Netcoins and Liberty X are pretty popular for that kind of a physical teller type thing.
Yeah, but that's like going on the wayside. Like Taxful still has listings for that, but like if you notice recently, local Bitcoins completely removed their like teller or in-person option.
Yeah.
But that is, some people do prefer a teller because you can talk to somebody. It feels more like real. Like you can ask questions. Other people, they don't want to talk to anyone. They want it as quick, as simple as possible. They want to use the ATM and they want to get the hell out of there.
Right.
Yeah, it's different though for a lot of people, I guess, that way, because like you were talking about being a miner, not being able to go that route, and earlier you mentioned kind of like inspired by Silk Road. There's not just like for illegal reasons, but for communal reasons, you can't really utilize the banking system when you're doing goods and services and using Bitcoin to be your own bank. Going to the Bitcoin ATM machine is pretty much the only way to stay above water when you're going against all these borders of entry, as an independent entrepreneur, especially the internet is where entrepreneurs are going. They're not getting brick and mortar stores anymore.
Right. And I mean, even just like there are some banks that if they see, like Chase Bank, for example, like if they even see that you're purchasing Bitcoin, like, let alone using it for goods and services, whatever it is, if you even purchase it, they'll ban your account. And like then they might even put you on a list, like check systems or early warnings. Where
I think that's what happened to Michael Knight too.
And Andreas Antonopoulos just had an issue where he couldn't do stuff with cards and banking because he worked with Bitcoin. So now he's only accepting Bitcoin.
Right. Who the hell wants that, right? Like, I mean, now not only do I not have a bank, now I'm like on this like watch list where like other banks won't take me, and like I mean, obviously we rip on banks, but like, I'd still like to have an account
Well,
somewhere.
that's the issue with censorship, right? But I feel like we could see censorship in crypto as well, especially, unfortunately with your Bitcoin ATM machines, regulations could enforce you to imply or enforce, censorship as well. So you could see potential KYC at every Bitcoin ATM machine.
Right.
It's
Right.
always the threat.
It is always a threat. I mean, you kind of like, in order to get this technology to the people of like, to just the regular average Joe, we do have to play by the rules, but like hopefully eventually the institutions that made those rules will be, weakened and put in check by the people that have all this Bitcoin that we've disseminated to them.
Well, I think there's an incentive we can segue towards. Yeah, have you seen other countries? I think it was like Australia and Europe where they're updating their current ATM machines, or even like their transit for like the train tickets or subway tickets. You can now go up and get Bitcoin at the same exact machine with a simple update. Do you feel like there could be a integration like that here in the U.S. where the current machines could just have a simple update to the OS and start offering the same services?
Well, it's happened before. I mean, you see that with like the Coinstar CoinMe play, but when you see like those when you kind of jerry rig a machine that's previously done this before, like is previously made for something completely different, you have kind of problems with user experience and interface, because now like if you ever use like one of those Coinstar kiosks, you have to like you have to go through all those steps, like then it prints out a voucher and then you go online to redeem the voucher, and it just seems kind of like a lot of hoops to jump through to get the coin. Not that it doesn't work. I mean, obviously it's still going to help adoption, but it does help to use a machine that, was specifically made for this, like has its DNA in this, so that you can, go there, scan the QR code right there, insert the cash right there, do all the KYC at the ATM, get it immediately. That's what people want. Like when you're already using an ATM, like you want convenience, like you want to make it as easy as possible so that nobody complains. But not to say that obviously that's won't help adoption for, a regular class to sell it.
Well, I'm thinking more along like the incentive for them to lobby with you rather than against you, because those regulations will be enforced on them as well as the future goes on, and they're incentivized to contribute or compete in the same market as you. They don't want to have to go through the same red tape they lobbied you against. So I think that's where I was kind of like, the what's Coinstar and all these other legacy systems getting more involved. They don't want you to have to put your driver's license into the Coinstar machine to get your change out as Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, now there's a U.S. senator that's like interim, whatever, that's like CEO of a Bitcoin exchange. So the more help we can get in like Washington and all the states, the better. I mean, we're constantly fighting bills that put undue regulation on like Bitcoin ATM companies in different states, and like we're always on top of that to make sure that we can get Bitcoin to everyone.
Shout out to Castle Crypto in the chat. I see you, bro. So what's the roadmap for CoinFlip for 2020 as 2019 wraps up? I'm sure you guys are excited for the new year with the halvening and everything coming into play. What is sort of the roadmap for CoinFlip?
So from like the ATM side, we're focused on adding more ATMs, of course. We're trying to add maybe 15, 20 a week if we can.
What's your like demo location, like the demographic type of location that you're looking at when you're saying you want to see more ATMs out? Are you looking at like the 24-hour gas stations, or are you looking more at like tech stores or tattoo parlors? I'm just curious what you're looking at.
We actually want to mix. Yeah. There's not like one place that we want to be. It's definitely like a mix, but like almost anywhere with like good hours would be like an ideal place.
And parking.
Exactly. And like one thing that people might find surprising is that like it doesn't have to be in like a big city either. Like there's probably as much demand as like small towns as like the same as in a big city. So then like we're looking almost everywhere that we can. So we're always trying to grow and like just find adoption anywhere that we can.
Right. And like obviously we do, like you mentioned those 24-hour gas stations. I mean, obviously we do like those simply because 24 hours, so high security, high, accessibility. The parking is key because again, Bitcoin ATMs are all made on convenience. You don't want to like go somewhere and then spend 30 minutes looking for parking to go inside. And I typically tend to like what Dustin said is true, that we do have a plethora of different types of stores. Like we have vape shops, we have bars, we have restaurants, we have gas stations. But I do like the gas station and the convenience store for kind of like the privacy aspect. Is like, you know, people don't want to see like, they don't want to be seen going in somewhere with $4,000 in cash because that could be like dangerous. So like kind of in a gas station, you know, you're not really being bothered as much. You can kind of go off in a corner. Some other stores might not be as private, so you know, that does pose a risk.
Right. Especially with like I see you have the 24/7 customer service, and a lot of places I see these Bitcoin ATMs really thrive are at 24/7 businesses like those gas stations.
Yeah, the gas stations are key, and always, I mean, shout out to Ken Bozek's supporters right now. If any of you want to help us sell Bitcoin ATM locations, we do pay for that. Every location up front plus a residual. So that's something we do as well.
All right, so you have like a community incentive bounty program for finding these locations.
We do.
That's interesting. I might have to get in on that because there's not that many around here. I've noticed one at my local 7-Eleven from some random, and the fucking fee was like 20% on the market. But it's physical, it's marketing, it's branding. But what worries me is that somebody may go to that machine, purchase the asset, look at what shows up in their wallet, and realize that they've lost 20% and they're already in debt to the market. And now the market has to go up 20% for them just to break even.
Right.
Exactly.
It is brutal. But I mean, that's, you know, that's what we're dealing with, right? I don't know, like I guess the bit, like, you can kind of understand kind of why Bitcoin ATM operators do that, because I mean they also are oftentimes taking market risk, whatever.
And it's supply and demand too. That's like the hugest factor, honestly, right? We're at a very low percentage of these machines. If we start to see them increase, you start to see 10% more of these machines in the market, I bet that it would reflect a 10 to 20%, you know, battle of who can have lesser fees occur.
Right. That's definitely true. And another thing that we're also like, definitely the more ATMs there are, probably the fees will be driven down. I think right now there's only like 5,000 in the entire world, which is pretty damn small. So as soon as that happens, you know, we can definitely do that. And also, like, I think something we fight with also is transparency. So there are websites like CoinATM Radar that do a great job of, you know, putting the fees side by side, saying like who's displaying their fees, who isn't displaying their fees, what is their fees, side-by-side comparisons in the same area. They do a great job of that. Shout out to CoinATM Radar. But a lot of times, you know, if you're new to the space, which a lot of times people using cash are, or you're not really sure, you're kind of just like, oh, like these are all the same, you know. You know, a lot of people think of us as like Bitcoin. Like they're calling me like, is this Bitcoin? Like, you know, they don't know the difference between one ATM and another. And if you kind of just like bake the price in there on the little screen like that, like they might just go through with it anyway. So the transparency is also a huge like thing we fight.
That's a good point. And what about like you know, like you said, people that are getting in are pretty much noobs, novice going through these machines. You know, there's a lot of phishing scams that will kind of walk people through how to use a Bitcoin ATM to steal their money. What kind of like processes is CoinFlip putting into play to kind of educate people as they use the machine to hopefully, you know, let them know that you're probably getting scammed?
Yeah, we have like several steps in order to like prevent this. We probably take more measure than like any other operator that I've seen. So we, first of all, whenever they enter their phone number at our ATM, it would send them a text message warning. So the verification code, they would, along with that, they would also see the warning on their phone.
Yeah, like if you're paying for a utility bill, if you're paying, if you were led here to like do this, do that, like likely it is a scam, we'll text them that like right away.
Yeah, it'll text them that, and then along with the on-screen warnings, we actually, there is a delay on the actual ATM. For example, you wouldn't be able to like just skip it immediately. It would literally, you will literally have to wait it out.
So you have to read it.
Yeah, so you kind of like have to read it. And then also for anyone who is registering at the ATM, we actually have our customer support people call them. And yeah, we call them and then also verify that they're not sending it to anyone that they do not know in person. So yeah, we actually take, I think like more measure than any other operator when it comes to making sure like our customers know what they're doing and they're not getting scammed.
Yeah, we would obviously hate that, right?
Yeah, this
You
was
know,
really
some of the people.
rampant during the ransomware hacks and everything. A lot of people were running to these machines to basically pay these hackers, for nothing, basically, because sometimes it was a legit ransomware and they would unlock the files. Most of the time, it was just a copy paste ransom virus, and they weren't even ever going to unlock them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we don't want people's first,
Experience.
experience with Bitcoin being like, what is this thing I just got like scammed with? Like it's in our very much incentive to make sure that everyone, you know, knows what they're doing, is comfortable with Bitcoin, so that they stick around.
Because we don't want this one-time people using our ATM. We want people to use it, love it, and then come back.
Right.
Like that's kind of like the goal of like the ATMs.
And we're building the community, so we don't want a bad rap.
So as opposed to the exchanges, who are the, like, when you're building these Bitcoin ATMs, who's the customers? Like, what is the use factor for an individual outside of what we talked about, like how you got into it because of the unbanking for the underage, which is an interesting topic that most people don't really touch on.
Yeah. So before I was 18, I actually seen a lot of people who I also relied on cash checking places to get my cash, or to get cash for my checks. And through there, I seen a lot of people who also rely on these, and I did more research on that. I think like the last figure that I've seen is that 53 million Americans are unbanked. So like,
Or underbanked.
Yeah, or underbanked. So they don't have the infrastructure to get like crypto, even if they want to do like their bank accounts. A lot of the people who use our ATM are unbanked. They're students, remittance purposes, retail investors, people who do not want to risk getting their bank account closed. So there's a lot of different factors on why people use it.
People use it as their own bank. Like,
right,
like
exactly.
if you run if you run like a cash only business, or you get paid in cash, like it's not super safe to keep all your money like in a mattress where it can like burn down one day. You'd probably rather have it on like a junk drive or something like that, where it's a little bit safer with like your savings.
Do you see stable coins? That makes me that brings up a good point though. Do you see stable coins with these Bitcoin ATM machines kind of living together? Because not many of these ATM machines list a single freaking stable coin.
Yes.
Including us as of now. But
as of now, we are one of those.
We are one of those.
We
bastards.
definitely do see a stable coin coming.
Very soon. We've been in talks with several. Just we're trying to keep our
exactly.
consumers as safe as possible.
Because then you can eliminate the cash out. No, you wouldn't have to have the machine withdraw cash. I could just get a stable coin for my volatile crypto asset.
Yeah,
that's exactly 100%. What you mentioned. Like that's what a business wants. If they want to be their own bank, they don't also want to have the burden of volatility as well. So now they can have the power of being their own bank, the perks of not having so much volatility in their assets, but also have the unconfiscatable, immutable, decentralized currency as a stable coin.
Yeah, and also like with the coming DeFi services, like there's a lot of different services where you're able to collateralize like your coins and then get more coins back, or like earn interest rates that are higher than like a savings account.
Yeah, I could see that. Small business having DAI instead of a savings account with Celsius Network, and that would bring the business in way more income.
Yeah. 8.6%. Oh, shout out to BlockFi, by the way. We do have a partnership with them. If anyone wants to earn interest, it's blockfi.com/CoinFlip.
Nice plug, boss.
BlockFi guys are pretty cool. I met them a few times.
Yeah, I mean their percent is 6.3 compared to Celsius, which is around 3 point something for Bitcoin. So
hey, I'm not a fan of monopolies, man. We need more competition in this market. The more, the better. Exactly. I'm a big fan of diversifying risk, and having multiple, interest platforms is great for shit like that. You could have your Bitcoin on one, your stable coin on another, whatever, and diversify that risk.
And you don't know, maybe we will even have NFTs.
That's what I'm fingers crossed for NFTs.
Right.
And that's another thing with the CoinFlip. Did you guys see? I think actually no, it wasn't at Litecoin Summit. It was Silicon Nexus. But they were at the Chainwise conference right after that. That's why I got it mixed up. But they have a physical machine that looks like a Bitcoin ATM, but it's only for NFTs.
That's really interesting because, like, I've been researching a lot of, like, the NFT markets, especially with like the Gods Unleashed. That
God's Unchained.
Yes, Gods Unchained. Shout out to them. I love what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, I played it a little bit, especially like over the weekends when like they have their tournaments and stuff, and like I was able to get into like their alpha pack. That was really cool. But I don't know. I could definitely see NFTs coming in like a couple years before like everyone's gonna get into it just because like you're able to trade it. It gives you like the vibe of like collectible card games when I used to like trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So you know, like it's definitely there. The market is there.
Yeah, and we were talking about interest earlier when you mentioned NFTs, and that's where I really start to feel like people don't perceive the future of this, but with these non-fungible tokens, and as a collector you would know, like, you don't really want to sell these things, you want to
Right.
hold on to them, but you could lease them out to other gamers and earn interest on your NFT while it gains value.
Wild.
So you could have your cake and eat it too with assets that are tokenized.
I made a tweet about that a couple of weeks ago. I was like, it should be fairly easy to like loan it out to a smart contract to like make sure you get it for sure, and then like also you get the money, like just put it all into a smart contract and then it comes back to you. I think there are. I was told that there are companies working on that though, or like there are concepts that are already made for it. So I'm excited for that.
I'm ready to tokenize my Egyptian god cards.
Exactly.
And Exodia, baby.
Well, Wax.io, their blockchain, you can tokenize your physical Magic the Gathering cards or something somehow and stuff. I don't know. It was interesting when I started seeing them, but
Oh shit.
Are you
Yeah,
able
they-
to redeem it too?
well, they have like a physical vault, so you'd have to like send
Okay.
it to a vault and they tokenize it. And I think they also have like shoes and other random physical items that you could have tokenized.
Yeah.
So I have like tokenized
I see-
T-shirts and hats that I could redeem for physical shit from their vault.
Let me know when they do Yu-Gi-Oh.
I seen like exchanges, like they actually allow people to like buy the shoes with like crypto into like a market, like where they're like basically a buy and sell on the actual exchange. I think it was like bw.com or something like that, but it's like pretty cool. They're like, yeah, they're allowing hype beasts to get into like the market, but then like I feel like I'm not exactly sure how it works for the cards, just because then like how do you really determine like the conditions of the card? You know, like
Well, I'm sure that, you know, sort of how they're
Yes, I agree.
graded, you know, they'll be graded as, you know, they go into the vault system, I'd imagine. And then
Yeah,
you'd
that'd
be
be
buying
really-
from that grading system. Like, they have the
Yeah.
AAA grades for Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic cards and Pokemon and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that they'll have that. And I think that, you know, you mentioned grading and NFTs, and I know this is a little off the ATM topic here, but I think that there'll be a grading system for NFTs as well. That where I think, no, honestly, like if you had a crypto kitty that came straight from Vitalik Buterin's wallet, that would be more valuable than one that came from a cryptocurrency exchange like OpenSea. So now you could have that NFT audited in a sense and have it rated as a more valuable than its counterpart CryptoKitty because of where it came from. So like if you got a Ken Griffey card from Ken Griffey, it's way more valuable than when you got one from a pack of cards.
right. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
True. It's kind of like an autograph almost in the
Right.
virtual.
And you can see this on the open ledger. It's all public, so you can see the addresses on the smart contracts. You can see whose address came from what. And I think if you see something that had 50 transactions behind it, it may be like 50 people touching a physical card. It may not be as valuable.
Right. And it's kind of like it also solves the problem of like counterfeits. Like you see that in cards and sports memorabilia all the time where people just get like jacked to their life savings.
Yeah, I think they're trying to incorporate IoT and blockchain for that with like NFC, like near field communications, like kind of ingrained in physical items. So if you go to use your phone and tap it, there's some form of a signature saying this is an authentic, and people are worried about counterfeiting those, but I'm sure as we get more into the IoT future, tamper resistance will play a big part.
Right.
All right, so I can segue back into this whole ATM talk. Watch how quick this is. You know, a lot of people didn't see the incentive behind the machines of the legacy ATM machines for cash. I know people still call them Mac machines, and that's hilarious. But we have ATM machines today. But when they first came out, a lot of businesses didn't see a reason for, there was no incentive for them to have an ATM in the corner when they already accept the cards in cash right at the register. But when you start to see a business say no cards accepted, there's an ATM in the corner, you can put your card in that machine, get the cash out, and then come back and do business with me. Because they learned, instead of losing 5% on that transaction by accepting the card, they could make 5% by saying go to the ATM instead. And I think that you have the inside for this perspective. What is that thought process with that in mind, like when you look at a Bitcoin ATM machine going towards the retailer's incentive to now say go there instead of here first?
So I don't know necessarily that, because it's not like a bunch of retailers are like accepting Bitcoin, right? And like in any way like that. But I mean, obviously, if they did accept Bitcoin, it would help because now more people have it in like that regard. But most of the incentive for the store, I don't know if this is where you're like headed, but like what we give them is we give them rent. We give them a flat rate every month or a profit share. So they also have like an incentive for the machine to do well, because if people are putting more in, then they get more. Also the foot traffic. So unlike a regular ATM, which is more of like, oh, I see this, I need cash, I'm going to go to it. It's kind of like an impulse purchase. People are looking for the Bitcoin ATMs. Like they're looking, where can I trade my cash, or where can I trade my cash for Bitcoin? And then they'll find the place where we are, and then we'll go. So we're bringing like 1,500 extra people into the store that they'd never see otherwise. So that's kind of their incentive. It's a little bit different in terms of like they don't save any like money on percentages in their transactions, but they're still super happy to have us, you know?
Yeah, and you know the people who use the ATM, they're usually like they use the ATM and they buy a small ticket item like a drink or like a bag of chips or something like that, and like the stores love that.
Yeah,
especially if you're in like a $1 store.
Yeah, it's a secondary niche to have in any, like, so if you're, like you said, you have the bars, restaurants, whatever, and you know these vape shops necessarily wouldn't see these people's foot traffic otherwise. It's a separate reason for somebody to walk in the door.
Exactly.
And we've started to see more and more of this with other things like random businesses. I think, again, dude, my 7-Eleven's like really on top of shit here. They have the Amazon Prime lockers. So that's another reason, you know, that a business adds another business, because you have no reason to go to 7-Eleven and, you know, whatever. You go there to pick up your Amazon Prime shipping and you stop in for a Slurpee. And that's the incentive to add more of these, you know, foot traffic. I would say like not so much like niche fatty things, but it sort of is like when like I talk to a business like, yo, this is niche, it's trendy. Like you would be one of 100 businesses in the 20-mile radius with this. That's sort of like the incentive is like to have that niche.
100%, yeah. Because I mean, in like the case of 7-Eleven, like any person eats food or drinks food. So even if you get them from somewhere where they wouldn't normally come, they can still obviously like purchase your wares and see what you have to offer, because like everyone has been to a convenience store and has used, you know, like bought a drink or chips, like what Dustin was saying. So yeah, definitely.
Are these machines evolving, or do you think we'll see them pretty much the same? Because like you said, like you don't want to have that awful UI UX experience for a customer. But I don't think we should be holding back the potential of these machines and the technology, right? Like for that reason, do you think we may see more complex, I would say, right, for lack of a better word, more of these like technical machines, or will we always see them sort of like predecessors of the legacy ATMs?
Well, ours don't look anything like normal ATMs. Like a lot of our competitors do. They look like Gen Mega or whatever, like Diebold ATMs. They're kind of clunky and ugly. Ours actually look like, you know, they're super slick kiosks. We're constantly trying to improve them. You know, we wrap the side of it, we wrap the front of it, we wrap the back of it, you know, we're branding it. Always, I think software updates are running every single month.
Right.
Probably, yeah. So we update the software like every month, and we're constantly trying to see like how we can make it easier, what other like complementary services we can offer. You know, we're always trying to move forward in that. Like we want to like separate ourselves from like the you know, the clunky ATM of the 90s. Like we're trying to be like a whole different kiosk, which is ironic because we call it Bitcoin ATMs, but still.
Yeah. I mean, from a software side too, we're also always evolving. Like we're trying to add new features to it. We're trying
that would be cool.
Actually, with like the stable coin, like
yeah, we are working
trying
on
to
that.
evolve it like on different factors too. You know.
Right. Yeah, never stay in the same place or you're dying.
Yeah, I think that's important when you look at this because a lot of these projects that come out today are kind of like trying to, specifically design things for the legacy, the ease of on ramp, and I feel like it's a holdback because when that on ramp is taken, now it's sort of dumbed down, and it's going to be a quick process. Most people are going to be on ramps pretty quickly when they start to get involved because of the financial incentive. From $5 to $5 million doesn't matter how much you have involved in crypto. You're now incentivized to learn a hell of a lot more about it because it's sort of a financial burden. You being your own bank, you better be able to manage that. And I think that we'll see people cross that on ramp very quickly and be pretty disappointed if things aren't futurist instead of just todayist. And I think like that's why a lot of those ATMs I was talking about earlier are just shells sitting on a shelf collecting dust because they were too relatable and not able to be adopted. As soon as somebody came to the ATM, they had to find a new one because that was already something beneath them.
Exactly.
Right. Definitely an issue. I see being too legacy and too set in your ways versus going forward. I agree with you.
That's why we have to actually make the process like easier rather than like more complex with like more KYC and then like so we kind of have to dumb it down because honestly retail investors, they want to get Bitcoin as easy as possible.
What I would think would be an interesting thought is to see whitelisted addresses in ATM machines where if I have a user account with CoinFlip and I go to deposit, it can only go to addresses that I've already verified that are whitelisted. So it can only go to this Bitcoin address or only to this Ethereum address. That way I don't have to carry anything with me. I could leave my hardware wallet or whatever at home and just show up with the cash, use my username, and have it sent right to that whitelisted address.
Previously used addresses.
Exactly.
That's a dope idea. I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool.
Or else I'm going to forget.
Yeah, you can just add me to the advisors board on the website.
Yeah, you're.
I'll send you the invite to the Telegram group, right?
There we go.
I actually refuse Telegram, Discords. I cannot do it. As soon as I join a community's chat, everything explodes and I get 50,000 messages from individuals, which is really cool and I appreciate it, but it's super overwhelming. I only use Twitter. That's the only and I'm even moving away from Twitter and I'm starting to use SoMe and Float. Like they're two new platforms, but I've been using them a lot more than I've been using Facebook and Twitter.
Have you had issues with like imposters and like the different Telegrams and like Instagrams? Like that seems like a really common thing in like crypto where like people are just making fake accounts of, like
but I feel like that my reputation's so uncredible that if anybody got duped by a fake me, they should feel really dumb. Because I feel like even the real me shouldn't even be able to scam you out of your money if I try. You know what I mean?
On YouTube, Bitcoin.
But it also helps that I do publicly say this on like the social networks I do use that I'm not on Discord, I'm not on Telegram, I'm not on Slack, I'm not on any. If you see people reaching out, it's definitely not me. I'm never there. And if I am there, I could post on Twitter. I just joined your Slack as like a form of a social 2FA.
Right.
True. I also saw you on Instagram there. You got some news there.
I'm trying to get kicked off, man. They're getting there. It's getting real close to me losing my Instagram account.
Ken versus Instagram.
Well, it's such a stupid platform with so much censorship, and it's so centralized in such a shitty way, and the way they monetize the data in it, it's bad. Like, you have to think, why was Instagram purchased for the hundreds of millions of dollars if you can't even post a clickable link in a photo that you post? There are huge amounts of data being mined behind that, and I'm just not a fan of Instagram for that reason. So the only reason I use it is to promote the other social platforms I moved to.
Right. So you're even trying to say you're moving away from Twitter. That's like your biggest audience.
Yeah, it is. But same reason I don't just, we're live streaming, but I'm not just on YouTube where I have like 11,000 subscribers. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Mixer where I have 1 follower. I'm on DLive where a couple hundred people follow me. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like more, especially in this industry, more people should realize that it's a stupid concept to funnel all of your viewership to one social network or one soapbox, because as soon as the terms and services go against what you're doing, it's completely taken out from under your feet. And we've seen this with YouTube.
It's like a bank.
Like, look at YouTube. They completely erased every cannabis content creator that used to have hundreds of millions of subscribers where they did bong rips and reviewed cannabis strains, and they're
For
gone.
real?
And then you could
Wow.
look up
I didn't know that.
WCOPA, the COPPA, the Child Outreach Program Protection thingy. A lot of YouTubers are leaving YouTube because they make content for adults, but sometimes it can be considered child created intentionally. But it's not. When you make like Crypto Brecky does a lot of the parodies for the Rick and Morty. That could technically be considered illegal content if he doesn't say that it was for children. And if you like, and there's a lot of issues with these platforms now. Facebook is basically eradicating political groups. If you're part of a libertarian group on Facebook or whatever, like they just delete it. And now hundreds of thousands of people are now, split back up and have to reconform back into their groups again.
Right, exactly.
They could just blanket ban you one day. You wake
Yep.
up and you can't even log in. And then
What
who
is-
are you going to talk to, right?
So I know Twitter's where I have a huge following, but I don't believe that it's that's my incentive for giving it that much of my attention back. I think that
Fair
it's
enough.
more dangerous than it is now nothing. Like if I start to depend on Twitter too much, then now I'm begging them not to delete me or demonetize me, and
Now Jack's got you by the balls.
Right, fuck Jack. Cash App's pretty cool though. I talked to their team in real life in New York City, and they were really cool dudes. Actually, the Cash App people seem like they're actually Bitcoiners at heart, and I don't know why they named it. Well, I know why they called it Cash App because the community kept calling it the Cash App, but I think
Yeah.
it's more than that.
Did it used to start as Venmo, or was it always like a Venmo?
No,
competitor?
they had a
Oh, it was
different.
Bitcoin.
They always had a different name. I can't remember the different name, but everybody called it the Cash App, and they were like, "All right, rebrand."
True. True. But I feel like Jack Dorsey actually is one of the few like high up like CEOs, whatever, that actually does like Bitcoin.
Yeah, but just
That's
because he
that's
likes
one
Bitcoin
problem.
doesn't mean he's a good dude. That Twitter censorship is real, and especially for the sex workers in the world that use Twitter for their not safe for work content, they're being deplatformed right now on Twitter. It's like a massive deplatforming. So if your favorite porn star isn't there tomorrow on Twitter, hopefully she went to SoMe or Float and you can follow her again.
What is Float?
I'm gonna riot.
Float.app. It's sort of like a social media meets Facebook. If Twitch was what it was supposed to be, so it feels like Facebook, but it also has the live streaming on the back end. So you can just simply go from my Float profile, and if I'm live streaming, you can click right on the live button. It brings you right to my live stream, and people can subscribe or super chat, but it's all Bitcoin. So if you want it, you could subscribe to my podcast for like $1 a month, and every month automatically $1 goes out of your Float wallet and into mine. Or you can send me a super chat. And like YouTube right now, if somebody sent me a super chat, they would steal 30%, maybe 40% of the super chat. And if you send me a super chat on Float, I would get all of the Bitcoin except for the transaction fee, of course.
Right.
Nice. So it's kind of like the same premise of cut the middleman.
Yep, and it's like one of those things that's like early adopter potential. Like the people who were first to use Twitter have huge followings and all these verified badges and everything, and legacy is part of their clout.
Right.
And I'm hoping to kind of establish that on new platforms because I'll never have more followers or credibility than people that have been using Twitter for a decade.
Right. Well, never say never, but
Yeah,
it's obviously an uphill battle.
good point.
Right. Definitely. It's kind of like domain names back in the day too. Like everyone just buying up the domain names.
That's the thing we could talk about too is do you guys follow what smart domains are doing with their domain services and blockchain addresses?
Is it like the .eth and like?
No,
crypto?
yeah, sort of. It's .zil, I believe, or something like that, and you can set up your Bitcoin. You can set up all your addresses. So, for example, if I went to a CoinFlip ATM machine, all I'd have to type in is kenbozak.zil, and it would know from that username where to send any asset. Doesn't matter if I'm buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin. If I type in that username, then it knows exactly where to send the asset.
Yeah, so I follow that a little bit. I think like I got my Ethereum name service name. For like the .zil ones, I think they do .z IL and also .cryptos now. And then I think like I tried to get the CoinFlip one, but I don't think it's available yet, unfortunately.
You're gonna have to hand that over to get it.
Well, yeah, there's a process I think for getting it. I had them on the podcast before, and you could
Right.
join their Slack or Telegram and say, hey, sort of verify that you are behind the domain, because they do worry about domain squatting, and that's one of the reasons why it may not be as easy to
Exactly,
get certain
especially for
keywords.
brands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
You guys
I
heard
do
about
and
that
don't
one?
like. I do and I don't like, because I feel like that's free market, and that's the opportunity behind it. But again, that could hold a lot of people back from utilizing it. Like, I was kind of a dick. I bought like 10 different influencers or content creators Ethereum smart names. Like, I bought so many .eth accounts that you could, if you send it, I'll get it to like. I even bought Trevon James and what's the other guy's damn name? .eth. I forgot his damn name. That's how long it's been since I mentioned those guys. Craig Wright. No, that's the other guy. Craig something.
Is it the joke guy?
Jorg
No, from BitConnect. The other guy.
Oh.
Trevon James and Craig something.
Carlos
Damn it.
Matos.
Carlos,
Carlos
dude,
Matos?
you know what's funny? I told World CryptoCon they should hire Carlos Matos to be the MC.
Dude, that guy killed it. I don't even know if he even like knew what was behind that shit. But
Not
he had a
at
great
all.
voice.
No, he should definitely. We need
Really?
to get him back. We need him back.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude, he's been unjustly slandered.
Yes, we need Carlos Matos back in the community. We need to welcome him with open arms and show the world that we aren't biased, bigoted. We can move on when people move on type of community, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of people that were involved with different types of scams or whatever whatever you want to call it, and they're still going to be a part of our community, like it or not. So Carlos Matos is, if you Google these things, he shows up. So we need to get a good look on him again.
I'm down. I support that. I endorse it.
Carlos Matos for president.
That actually also reminds me of it was just like when domain names were first starting, Nissan, the car company, wanted Nissan.com, and then this Jewish person got it because Nissan is a Jewish month, and he owned Nissan.com, and then there was a huge lawsuit over it, and to this day, Nissan does not have that domain name. So
that is beautiful. That is so beautiful. I saw something happen where back when Xbox One first came out, there was some kid who created xbone.com. And it was just XB, the first two letters of Xbox One, xbone.com. But he used it to talk about PS4 and how much better it was than Xbox. Microsoft got so pressured. They got so much fucking traffic, they had to buy the website from this kid. I thought that was genius.
That is definitely genius.
Smart kids.
So with these Ethereum domain names, dude, it might be a good idea to try to squat where you can when you can. But seriously though, I think it would be an interesting concept to see as these technologies are built, seeing them integrated and utilized in one, where you can see now an easier way of using a Bitcoin ATM machine because you just type in your smart domain name and walk away.
Yeah, I mean on the Ethereum name service, I think it came out actually years ago, I think 27 or early 2017, and then I remember how much they were probably way more expensive than crypto kitties at one point.
Yeah, they were 0.1 ETH for just bidding, starting the bid auction.
Starting to bid, I think some of them sold for thousands of Ethereum. For example, Mark.eth, that one was really expensive. Target.eth, those sold for thousands and thousands of Ethereum.
And that was and you know what's stupid about this concept of bidding on domains? Seriously think about this. If you outbid Target, right? If Target was in a bidding war, because most people may not know this, for the Ethereum name service, you can put up an idea and it goes onto a public auctioning, and you have to either hope nobody sees it or you outbid. Even if you have the idea, it doesn't mean you'll end up getting it. So if Target saw Target.eth and you were in a bidding war with them and you won, what makes you think Target's gonna buy that from you if you already went higher than their buying price? Think about it. Like, where's the logic in this?
That's
True.
absolutely true.
True.
Yeah.
It's a good point. It is more price transparency though, but yeah.
Right, because of the transparency, though, that you'll obviously almost never make a buck because the counterpart that was on the other clearly just said nope, too high. They might wait for the Ethereum price to go down and offer you your Ethereum back, so you get the amount of Ethereum you bid at a lower US dollar price for them.
Right.
Cool way to think about it. I didn't even realize that.
It's the hustler mentality, man. I apply it to everything I see in this industry because right now it's such an early opportunistic error that it'll never happen again. Like, so I can't turn that light off. Whenever I look at anything, man, yeah, it's always that gears turning because the gold rush isn't just in mining, it isn't just in NFTs, and it's not just in Bitcoin ATM machines. It's in all of it. This rush is diversified across every industry, and it's equally disrupting every industry as it grows.
It's fucking wild.
It's been a good run, man. I mean, we've only been at it for 11 years as far as the technology goes, and with exponential growth and adoption rate, we're looking at a good, easy universal mainstream in a decade. Like 10 years from now, at the rate we're headed, unless something like a financial crisis happens, we still, a decade away, we'll see that this rate of adoption is keep going. It'll be at the point where every store accepts Bitcoin in some form. Either it's at the register or there's a Bitcoin ATM machine in the corner.
True. Yeah, for sure. In your opinion, when we're talking about mass adoption, or you just mean like people are holding it and like using it as an asset to like hedge against like the government or in banks, or literally like, this is what I have, this is what I use, like everything else is extinct?
Yeah, mass adoption means that Bitcoin has gotten to the point that it's government issued. That's really what mass adoption means, right? Like the petrodollar, the US dollar, is the only dollar you can spend in any country you walk in. Good luck spending Canadian dollars here in America or Hong Kong dollars. You can take the US dollar to Canada or China and spend it relatively easily. I want Bitcoin to be at that rate where it's mostly accepted and other currencies are having a harder time. So when you see governments requiring that a business has a whitelisted address for accepting customer funds, that I think is mass adoption.
And do you think people will have an incentive to spend a currency that's deflationary? That know there's up in value. Yeah, I mean, I know you like live on Bitcoin, but like
Well, I think as the supply and demand starts to really battle out, people will realize the more they use it, the less they need to have more value. So the more that you put back into the ecosystem, literally the more you get out in it. So if you're doing goods and services at a small scale and you get your suppliers to start accepting it and their issuers to start accepting it, now you have more people using it than you are. So if you only have 2 Bitcoin and you kept them all to yourself, you're not really doing anything for your value. But if you took 1 Bitcoin and you spent it or diversified it or gifted it or did something with it wisely, then that may incentivize more people to take more out of the supply, creating more of a demand, increasing the value of your 1 Bitcoin that you have left more so than if you just hodled the 2. And I think more and more people will be incentivized to keep spending it and using it because the more they use it, the more they spend it. Unlike the US dollar, the more their savings keeps going up.
Yeah, it's kind of like you got to look at it at the macro and not just like from one person's perspective. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, and I think people will look at this as a totally different mentality of economics altogether, where the more money you hold, or a lot of people have that fetish for holding cash as it loses value right there in their hands, and I think that they'll wake up to that aspect that volatility isn't a bad thing. The US dollar has volatility, but it's only gone down in one direction since its creation. It has lost purchasing power. There's never been a day where you said, oh, my $20 can get me more now. Like, it's never been that obvious of a volatility. But I think people will want, scarce resources like gas, electric, shit like that to be purchased with a scarce currency.
Makes sense. I hope, man.
I got my fingers crossed and my portfolio banking on it, but like I said, it's a 10-year thing. Like I spread out my vision more and more as I dive deeper down the rabbit hole, and I'm at that point now where I'm looking at Bitcoin and I'm even looking at, Bitcoin Cash, and I'm looking at these, alternatives, and I'm seeing it's an inevitable process, but it's such a disruptive one. I brought this up before on the podcast where Congress in 2018 finally started using digital documentation. So, like, the government was using paper for everything. Meanwhile, we have hard drives. So it's going to take a really, really, really long time. And in that sense, I say about 10 years for, like, just the government to have the infrastructure to handle this evolution. Our government can't greenlight something it's not ready to adopt and isn't ready to be adopted. So once we start to see these government agencies really setting out these, blockchain developer bills where, the government needs blockchain developers so bad that there's just free money out there waiting for you to just, sign up for it. And I think that that's, the starting point. When you start to see government agencies, really poaching these ICO companies for their developers, that's the beginning of the paradigm shift right there. Because if the government isn't ready, they'll never allow it. Oh, we're running up here on time. I'm sorry. I know I'm taking you guys
you're good.
out of
Sorry.
office.
I lost my right-hand man, or my left-hand man, I guess. He's pulled away. But
Well,
yeah.
I guess we can wrap things up. Is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we talked about or anything that we didn't get the chance to chat on before we do?
Yeah, so 2 things. So one is that we do have a 12 days of a coin flip for Christmas giveaway. We're going to be giving away something like $2,000 of like crypto shit, whatever, all this random stuff every day. So definitely give us a follow. And the other thing is I wanted to talk to you if you would be interested in hopefully us sponsoring you. We'll pay you a flat monthly fee, and we'll also give you an affiliate link so you can blast it out to your followers. I mean, we do have the lowest fees. You'll obviously get paid on that, and obviously your followers will also get a discount at their ATM. So
Dude,
it's a win-win.
that would be awesome, man. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk more about the sponsorship for sure. And guys, let me know what you guys think of having CoinFlip sponsor the podcast. I really appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir.
Much appreciated. Well, dude, tell your left-hand man I said have a day. And yeah,
Oh, he's
guys.
back.
Oh, he's back. There he is. I want to make sure people go to your Twitter account and follow you for the 12 days of Christmas so they can get some of that crypto swag. What was the Twitter account? Is it just at CoinFlip, right?
CoinFlip ATM.
Yep. ATM. All right, that's what I thought.
I wish it was just CoinFlip, but
Hell,
like we talked.
Domain squatting, right? So you're gonna find this guy and you're gonna have to offer him some Bitcoin, man.
We're gonna have to like shake him down. Like we're gonna have to go to his house and like take his first.
Well, did you see Jack has announced that Twitter will be deactivating and deleting accounts that were inactive for certain periods of time and releasing those names back into the wild. So if they're an inactive account that's domain squatting, you may have a chance to grab it again.
Let's hope.
Hopefully.
Let's hope they don't post anything.
Well, you probably go to Twitter support and get it if they're not posting and stuff. So check them out.
For sure, boss.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys. Stay on the line. We'll talk after the air. Guys, we're going to wrap things up. Don't forget to pound that thumbs up button. Drop some comments in the comment section below. Let's open the conversation up to you. Let's see what you guys think of the future of Bitcoin ATM machines. And as always, have a day.